Smithsonian initially had it. They weren't putting it on display. Some of the workers were apparently sitting in it during their lunch break. Ford's sisters petitioned to get it back. They got it back and sold it off and for about $3,000. So no relation to the Fords here and the Fords there. Now, next to that is the little cane chair where Mary sat in her hoop skirt. And then behind her is the sofa that's original where Major Rathbone sat. To the left would be his fiancée, Clara Harris. But this place would be very similar to what it looked like back in 1865. They had gas lighting. They had little cane chairs that they could move around. The Fords claimed they could fit 2,400 in this theater that holds 655. And that means people were smaller and there's no fire marshals. But famous photographer Matthew Brady took photos of the interior and exterior right after the assassination. So they recreated this place based on those photos. It was 103 years till it became an active theater, so it opened up again in 1968 and in partnership with Ford's Theater Society, as well as a National Historic Site run by the NPS. Now, there are 4 plays that happen per year from September through May. And then we have the gala, which is when the president sometimes comes. It's a red carpet event, and he'll sit right here with this lady sitting. So if he shows up today, the president did. It's 50-50 chance. But if you hear "Hail to the Chief," then you got to exit stage left. So until then, let's give her a round of applause. She'll be the honorary president. So treat her presidentially, everybody that sees her after this, okay? Now, if you guys do have any small children, or if they get out of hand and start, making a lot of noise, then please remove them. Because last time, earlier today, I had an issue with there was a child that was very animated. Let's put it that way. So we'll have a quick intermission, and then I shall begin. The intermission's over. If there is one thing that history has proven in this life, it is that there truly is nothing new under the sun. It seems to me that every 80 years or so since its beginning, this nation comes to a crossroads where its core beliefs, constitution, and the very future of its existence is put to the test. Our founding fathers risked their lives signing a document declaring independence from tyrannical rule. The Revolutionary War which followed would culminate when General George Washington and the American and French forces would surround General Cornwallis and the British at Yorktown, Virginia, forcing them to surrender and sealing the deal on this new republic in 1781. 80 years later, the Civil War, brother battling brother, would begin in 1861. 80 years after that, America would enter into World War II in 1940, when that date which shall live in infamy. We shall see in the next 6 years if this pattern holds true. But I believe that every generation has had to pay a price for America's freedoms and blessings to continue. This place is a testimony to that cost. Abraham Lincoln would be one of many who have given their lives for something greater than themselves, that this nation might live. And he would bear more burdens than any before or since. And those burdens would be heavy, like the plight of slavery, to which the president said, "Yet if God wills that this war continue until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid for by another drawn with the sword, then as it was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether." And the blood would certainly flow with battles like Antietam, Gettysburg, Chickamauga. Over 700,000 soldiers would die. This theater holds 655 seats. If you were to fill this theater with soldiers, that would be on average the amount that would be dying day after day after day for almost 4 years. And as Commander-in-Chief Those losses are mounting on the president's desk while he's battling his generals who are too passive in his opinion, not pursuing or attacking the enemy like he desired. In 1862, the president's going to suffer his greatest loss, the death of his beloved 11-year-old son, Willie, to typhoid fever. They were drinking bad water. This is going to crush the president. He said, Willie was too good for this earth. Mary, she will not recover from this. She's going to distance herself from her family and the man that needs her support during the Civil War. So to escape all this stress, if possible, when he could, the president loved to come to the theater. He loved Shakespeare and comedies. And on one such occasion in 1863, he comes here to Ford's Theater to watch the play The Marble Heart, starring acclaimed 24-year-old actor John Wilkes Booth. Now, Booth despises the president. He blames him for all the Southern problems. He thinks slavery is the greatest blessing that ever happened, so how dare the president try to abolish it and take away their property. He's even going to direct some of his more venomous lines that night toward the president in his box, to which someone in the president's party says, well, that looks like it's directed at you. And the president says, yes, he does look at me rather sharply, doesn't he? Well, in 1864, Booth's going to gather co-conspirators and hatch a plot to kidnap the president, take him down to Richmond and ransom him for the release of Confederate prisoners. They needed to reinstate the prisoner exchange that General Grant had stopped in order for the South to have a chance because they had less soldiers. After one failed attempt, where the president was not where they thought he was going to be, the plot stalls. 2 weeks later, Richmond falls. And a week after that, Robert E. Lee surrenders the Army of Northern Virginia to U.S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, signaling to most that the end of the war is in sight. So there's great celebrations here in Washington. There's grand illuminations, bonfires, fireworks, and they want the president to give a speech. A couple of days later, he puts together some words, and in his talk, he's going to talk about Reconstruction. And then he's going to say something very provocative for the time, that he believes that some black men should be given the right to vote. Well, guess who's in the audience? John Wilkes Booth turns to his co-conspirator, Lewis Powell, and says, I'll run him through. That's the last speech he shall ever make. 3 days later, the morning of April 14th, the president awakens unusually cheerful. Many people notice the change in his countenance. He's having a wonderful breakfast. His son, Robert, is there. He was with Grant at Appomattox, so the president wants to hear all the details of the surrender. Mary decides that they should go see the British comedy, Our American Cousin, at Ford's Theater that night. And they're going to invite General Grant and his wife Julia to attend. So they're going to send off a messenger to inform the Fords. Well, the Fords are elated because it's Good Friday, usually low visitation, about 300 or so. And General Grant is a huge draw in Washington. Rarely seen coming off these great victories. He is the toast of the town. So they're going to quickly advertise and decorate the box like so. Now coming down to pick up his mail about 11 o'clock that morning is the actor John Wilkes Booth. Harry Ford says to him, well, the old man and Grant are coming tonight. Well, that's interesting. So Booth's going to play it cool while he reads his mail on the porch. But what was once a kidnapping plot in his mind has turned to revenge and murder. The new plot to kill the president, Vice President Johnson, Secretary of State Seward, and Grant, to destabilize the Union government so that the South could refortify and reorganize. Now, Booth knows this play. He has access to come and go to the theater. He knows that there's one line that the audience is going to go absolutely wild over, so he's going to coordinate all the attacks around this one line, which will happen about 10:15. He's going to take a piece of a music stand he finds in the orchestra pit, place it in the hallway between the exterior and interior doors that leads to the presidential box. He will prepare his horses and weapons, write a manifesto, and at 8 o'clock that night meet with his co-conspirators to finalize their plans. The president and his party will arrive at 8:30 that night, half hour late to the play, and much to the dismay of the audience, without General Grant and his wife Julia, who decided to go visit their children in New Jersey. In their place will be Clara Harris, a friend of Mary's, and her fiancé, Major Henry Rathbone. They're going to make their way up the spiral staircase and around the dress circle. As they do, on stage, the famous actress Laura Keene's going to spot the president. Not hard to spot him. He's 6'4", stovepipe hat, takes him up to Shaquille O'Neal level. She's going to motion to the orchestra master to strike up "Hail to the Chief," and it's good times in Washington. Standing ovation for the president and his party as they make their way around. The president's going to smile, tip his hat to the crowd, and settle in the rocking chair to watch the play. Booth will arrive sometime between 9 and 9:30. He's going to tap on the backstage door and ask stagehand Ned Spangler to watch his skittish horse that will not be tied up. Well, Ned can't do it. He's got to move scenery around, so he gets Johnny Peanuts, a boy that sells peanuts in the peanut gallery, to do it for him. Now, Booth wants to cross over the stage, but he can't. There's scenery in the way, so he goes down a trapdoor under the stage and across where the museum is today, up another trapdoor, out the side to an alley, and around the front, the Star Saloon, where he's going to drink his fill of whiskey, liquid courage for his final cowardly performance. Just after 10 o'clock, he's seen hovering around the lobby. He finally makes his move up the spiral staircase and around the dress circle. Now, as he does, some people start to recognize him, but it's not unusual for him to be in the theater. He's a very famous actor. As he's leaning against the wall, he's gauging where he's at in the play. He's probably relieved that there is no guard outside the presidential box door. There was a Metropolitan Police officer by the name of John Parker assigned to take the president and his party from the White House into the box. He is either drinking in the Star Saloon or watching the play when the assassination happened. He's later brought up on dereliction of duty charges. He said the president had relieved him and could go watch the play. This is possible because security is definitely more lax back in 1865. The problem with Parker is that he'd been reprimanded 14 times before this for sleeping on duty, drinking on duty, going to a brothel on duty, later fired for sleeping on duty, and to add insult to injury, after the assassination, they actually sent him over to guard Mary at the White House. How do you think that went? Not too good. The only person that Booth has to get past is White House messenger Charles Forbes. He approaches Forbes and gives him what looks like a calling card. Now, Booth, because he is the Johnny Depp of his time, for you young people, he is Channing Tatum famous, yes. He's allowed to enter because of his fame. Once inside, he's going to take that piece of a music stand, put it against the door of the wall, barricading himself inside. Now, there is only one door between him and the presidential box. He's going to approach that door and look through a bored hole where you can see the president sitting. Then he's going to pull out his .44 caliber single-shot Derringer. And then he's going to listen. Because alone on stage is the actor, Harry Hawk. And he's about to deliver that one line. Don't know the manners of good society, eh? Well, I guess I know enough to turn you inside out, old gal. You sockdologizing old man trap. Now, what's wrong with you folks? That was hilarious. Well, unlike you guys, the audience erupts in laughter. That's Booth's cue. He steps forward, point blank range, and fires into the back of the president's head. The ball enters 2 inches from his ear. It goes through the brain and lodges behind his right eye. The president slumps forward as though he's sleeping. There's a blue-gray cloud of smoke. The first one to see Booth is Major Rathbone. He goes for him. Booth drops the Derringer, raises the dagger to stab Rathbone in the heart. It's going to parry the blow. It's going to go in the bone of the elbow and up the shoulder. Now, Booth's going to attempt to jump over that balustrade. As he does, Rathbone's going to grab his coattail. That's going to trip up Booth. His spur's going to get caught on the Treasury Guard flag. He's going to nick the picture of George Washington. It's going to come very hard and awkward to the stage. That's a 12-foot drop. It's where some people believe he broke his left fibula. It's either here or after he crossed over the Navy Yard Bridge. He said his horse had fallen on him. But I have two things in common with John Wilkes Booth. I have also broken my left fibula and the dashing good looks. But I could not do what he did, which is get up quickly with the bloody dagger and come to the center of the stage and yell, "Sic semper tyrannis," which is Latin for "thus always to tyrants." He's referring to Brutus killing Julius Caesar. That detestable soul is calling our beloved president a tyrant. And now whoever gets in his way as he exits is going to get slashed, including the orchestra master. And how does he go out and treat Johnny Peanuts? He's going to hit him in the forehead with the handle of the knife. He's going to kick him away, get on his horse, gallop down Baptist Alley towards the Navy Yard Bridge. And that's going to soon launch the largest manhunt in the history of America. Back in the theater, there's confusion. Some people are applauding when they see Booth jump. They think it's part of the show. It's not until Major Rathbone yells, "Stop that man! Why doesn't somebody stop that man?" Mary screams, Clara screams. Then people realize there's more happening here. But folks, when they realize it's an assassination, there is chaos and pandemonium in this place. There's a 6'5" army major that jumps over the orchestra pit to go after Booth. He almost catches him. By the time people realize what had happened, it's too late. He is gone. The first doctor into the presidential box is 23 years old, 6 weeks out of medical school, Dr. Charles Leo. He's looking for the dagger wound. They saw the bloody dagger. They put the president on the box floor, cannot find the dagger wound. He looks into his eyes, and he sees that it's a massive brain injury. He feels for the wound. He finds the wound. He sticks his pinky in the wound. This will dislodge a large blood clot, which will do two things. It'll help the president breathe as well as take the pressure off the brain. But it does not take the doctors long to realize that this wound is mortal. There's no way for him to recover. So what are they going to do with the president? They can't have him die in the theater. This is known as the devil's playpen in some circles. The saloon next door, that's not going to work. Dr. Leo overrules a carriage ride to the White House because the roads would be too harsh. So they're going to take him across to one of the boarding houses across the street, hoping to find a place where they can treat him. Well, the problem is now 1,700 people have poured out onto that street. At one point, they're holding up the president, not sure where to place him, still removing blood clots in the middle of the street to keep the pressure off the brain. Well, one of the tenants of the Peterson boarding house sees the chaos, comes to the stoop. His name was Henry Safford, and he yells, "Bring him in here." So they're going to take the president into the back room, put him on the bed diagonally. His feet will be hanging off towards the wall. And then it's just a matter of time. But the president's very strong. The doctors feel that most people would die in less than 2 hours with this kind of wound. When they took his shirt off, they were impressed with his arms now. He's 56 years old, 180 pounds. Civil War tends to take away your appetite. But his arms were big because, remember, he was a frontiersman, rail splitter, excellent wrestler, and chased vampires with the best of them. He's going to die 9 hours after he is shot. Dr. Leo is going to be honored for the way he cares for the president. Going to hold his hand for hours just in case the president regains consciousness. Even in his blindness, he wanted to let him know that he had a friend. The president does not regain consciousness. He's going to die at 7:22 on Saturday morning. The next day is Easter Sunday, so preachers get the word. They can't help but compare him to Moses, how he brought the people or the Union to the Promised Land, but was not able to enter himself. There were 3 others in the box that night. Mary's going to be accompanied by Laura Keene, who decided to get in on the act and said she cradled the president's head in her lap, so she's covered in the president's blood. Along with Major Rathbone, still bleeding profusely from the wound that Booth gave him, and his fiancée, they're both covered in his blood. They're going to be the ones consoling Mary across the street in the front parlor. And of course, Mary had already suffered great loss during the war. Her brothers, Willie's death, now her all-in-all Abraham Lincoln. 6 years after this, Tad's going to die of tuberculosis. Robert's going to be the only son to make it into adulthood. He's going to be retrieved from the White House, and he'll be consoling Mary. But he's later going to put his own mother in an insane asylum. And she will not appreciate that, so don't try that at home, kids. They'll have an estranged relationship until she dies. Robert's going to go on to be Secretary of War, and he's going to be with his father when he dies. He's going to be with Garfield when he is assassinated. And he's going to be arriving at the train station up in Buffalo when President McKinley is assassinated. So the first 3 presidents assassinated in American history, Robert is associated with. So presidents after that probably said, "Let's unfriend Robert." Major Rathbone, bleeding profusely still from that wound Booth gives him. He's going to He over there, all those doctors focus on the president. He's going to pass out from blood loss in the Peterson House hallway. If you're going to get wounded, try not to get wounded around a wounded president. You don't get much attention. He's going to be taken to Clara Harris's home where he's going to recover physically. But emotionally, he will not recover from this night. He was at Antietam and Fredericksburg. He's going to marry Clara. They're going to have kids, move to Germany where he's a consul for the government. But more and more he deteriorates, blaming himself for what happened. Starts to hear voices coming from behind pictures. She is worried he's going to take his own life. He's worried she's going to take the kids and leave him. Well, one night right before Christmas, he's going to go after the kids, most likely to harm them. She's going to calmly get him away from the kids, tells the governess, keep the kids inside, takes him into the master bedroom, and this is where he's pretty much going to reenact what happened in the box. He's going to take a gun and shoot Clara, a knife, and stab her, then stabs himself 6 times in the chest. She dies, he lives, and then is put in an asylum for the criminally insane where he dies 28 years later. The kids would survive. One becomes Congressman Henry Rathbone Jr. here in Washington and introduces a bill to help, of all places, Ford's Theater become a museum. They also have a distant cousin by the name of Basil Rathbone, who's the first Sherlock Holmes in the movies. John Wilkes Booth will not escape justice for this trail of tragedies he leaves. 12 days after he leaves stage right here at Ford's Theater, he is tracked down to a tobacco barn, surrounded by 26 cavalry. Now Booth, he has an ego, this guy. He knows if he surrenders, he'll be hung like a common criminal. He says, I have too great a soul for that. So he's going to challenge the cavalry to move back 100 paces and he'll come out and fight them. Well, they don't want to kill Booth. They want to put him on trial and see how far this conspiracy goes into the Confederacy. So his request is denied. After his co-conspirator, David Harold, is allowed to surrender, Detective Conger fires the barn to flush Booth out. And now it's just Booth in the middle of the barn. And looking through one of the slats of the barn is one of the most fascinating characters in this story, Sergeant Boston Corbett, who in his previous occupation was a hatter. He used to breathe in those mercury fumes that they used to cure the felt hats, which made you mad as a hatter. He said he was determined not to shoot Booth unless Booth makes a demonstration to hurt someone. Well, that demonstration comes, Corbett says, when Booth raises his carbine towards one of the soldiers. Corbett fires, aiming for his shoulders, but he says Booth must have stooped. He hits him in the neck. Very similar to where Booth shot the president. It's going to sever Booth's spinal column. He's going to be paralyzed from the neck down. They're going to drag him out of the burning barn to under a tree, and at that point he can only whisper, and he says, tell Mother I died for my country. And the barn's getting hot, so they're going to carry him over to the Garrett's farmhouse porch. And his last request will be that they raise his hands so that he can see them, which they do. And he says, useless. Useless. And he dies 2.5 hours after Boston Corbett shoots him. But his last word, useless, would sum up his final act, because he did not receive the glory and honor like he thought he would. Killing Abraham Lincoln would be the worst thing that could have happened to the South. Even Jefferson Davis says this 10 years after the war. Because with malice towards none, with charity for all, they would lose their would-be friend in Reconstruction. And the actor Booth, well, he will receive very negative reviews for his final performance. Both the president and Booth had premonitions of their deaths. John Wilkes Booth, when he was in boarding school in his youth, went to a gypsy fortune teller who read his palms. She said, I wish I had never seen his hand. It's the worst I've seen. She said, you shall have a grand but short life with a bad ending. This haunted Booth. He carried it with him. The president said, this war is eating my life out. I have the strong impression I shall not live to see its end. And 2 weeks before he is assassinated, he has a dream where he sees a body wrapped on a platform in the east room of the White House. As he approaches the people grieving around the body, he says, who has died in the White House? A soldier says, the president. he was killed by an assassin. Both men would die, but one who was seeking glory and honor would die in shame and contempt. Or the other, well, there's a scripture that says the light shines in the darkness and the darkness cannot overcome it. Some lights flicker brightest during the darkest hour. Certainly on the night of April 14th there were lights. Dr. Charles Leo, Henry Safford, and others. And during the darkest period of American history, the Civil War, there were also great lights. Frederick Douglass, Clara Barton, and that great light, which was Abraham Lincoln, which could not be extinguished that damp and foggy night of April 14th because it illuminates to this day. This city, Washington, has given itself over to monuments and memorials to honor great men and women who were lights during their generation's darkest hour. Perhaps one or more of you will arise and shine in these coming years and be called upon to help preserve the very freedoms and liberties that we the people so cherish. And finally, in the words of another man who persevered so that the first permanent English colony of Jamestown would not fail, Captain John Smith, who said, "Everything of worth is found full of difficulties." I'm sure that Abraham Lincoln would agree. Thanks, folks.